Hi, and welcome to the weekly SDSU Center for Autism Research Spotlight, where we highlight some of the great research that's being conducted by our center members. What we're doing here is just taking advantage of some of the time that we have during these stay-at-home orders that we're experiencing during COVID-19 to showcase the work that our center is doing in the San Diego autism community. My name is Janice Chan, and I'm the administrative coordinator at the center.
And my name is Vinton Omaleki. I am the Community Engagement Director here at the Center. Today we are speaking with Dr. Paul Luelmo, Assistant Professor in the Department of Special Education. Thank you so much, Dr. Luelmo, for taking the time to speak with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So what area of autism research do you focus in?
Yes, broadly speaking, my research and my work focuses on addressing disparities and inequities in special education. That's the broad goal of my work and my research, but within that, I have focused more on addressing disparities in diagnosis and service access in autism, particularly for minority, culturally, linguistically diverse families.
Great.
And so why is this research important? And then kind of following on that, obviously there is lots that important about, but kind of elaborate on that, and then also why does it excite you? Like why?
Yeah, my training is as a special education teacher, and I was a special education teacher in a low-income immigrant community in Los Angeles, where I noticed that a lot of parents that would come to the IEP meeting, or the IEP stands for Individualized Education Program for students with disabilities. They would come to these IEP meetings a little bit unaware of what this program was, right? So they were very thankful. They sometimes ask if their child would continue with the IEP, if we were gonna be so grateful or good to give the IEP to them, when in fact this was right. So what I noticed that there were a lot of miscommunication between the school and the families that I was serving, that I took a part of my job to tell them, this is your right, this is the right of your child, these are the services that they can access free of charge according to the federal law. And that's what kind of inspired me to go into a PhD program to continue to do this research and this work in terms of helping families access services in the IEP. I am personally interested in working with this community as I grew up in the Tijuana, San Diego area. I was living in Mexico when I was crossing the border every day to go to high school in San Diego. So I noticed that there were a lot of disparities in terms of how immigrants who might not have legal status or document were being treated, not just at the border, but also when they made it as far as the city of Los Angeles, where I was a special ed teacher. So it's very personal to me also to help these communities, as I am part of this community in particular. But I also noticed as I was doing more and more research that it was not just my experience in this school and my personal experience that were a particular problem, but it's actually a more systematic problem. It's something that the research shows that Latino kids get underdiagnosed with autism, that they get more misdiagnosed than other races or ethnicities, and that access less services. There's a recent study from the Regional Center in California that shows that Latino kids are getting about half of the expenditure in regional service centers and regional center services than other races like white students or white children. So this is something that is systemic, that it was not just my personal experience, and it's so important to address it because we know that early intervention, early services are so critical to the success of students in the long term.
That's awesome.
So since we've gone into your background and kind of how you even went into this, which is fascinating, can you tell us a little about the program that you're working on, the project?
The program of research.
The project, sorry.
Education.
What I'd like to know is what particular project are you working on specifically right now? And if you want to also talk about the programs you've worked on in the past too, that'd be fascinating.
Okay, sounds good. In terms of research, like I said, I focus a lot on families and helping address the discrepancies and disparities that exist in the system. So my work at UCLA focused a lot on first understanding what were the barriers that Latino families and also African American families face in not accessing timely diagnosis. So we conducted focus groups there to get at the root cause. And some of the causes are the families were unaware of autism, of the signs, they were unaware of how to navigate this very complex system of special education. But on top of that, the other complex medical system that is a completely different system. It's a different diagnosis method than it is in the educational system. So from then on, we work on intervention studies to work with the family, to partner up with community-based organizations. Fiesta Educativa, one of them, that helps Spanish-speaking families in California, and help develop programs that were a parent-to-parent intervention to help parents understand understand and address these barriers in terms of knowing about autism, creating videos and content targeted for parents and families to help them navigate the special education system and so forth. Currently at San Diego State, I'm doing another iteration of this research intervention that I'm working on. And it's a remote kind of computer-based educational program for parents that helps them understand the IEP. So what is the IEP? What are your rights? What is the least restrictive environment for a child with autism? And a lot of terminology that is sometimes hard to navigate as a teacher, but especially as a parent whose language might not be English or first language might not be English. So I developed this in collaboration with this organization, community-based organization, and we were actively recruiting participants until everything was on pause because of the current situation that we have.
Yeah, it has definitely affected a lot of us and the research that's being done. But when the study was going on and when you were actively recruiting, what did it look like to be a participant in the study? What did the study entail from their perspective?
Yeah, that's a good question. So parents approach this organization to get help. Sometimes they just get a referral from a friend, from a school. They say, you know, this organization can help you with just questions about the IEP, questions about the regional center, and how to get access for children with autism or other disabilities. And a parent would come to the organization, and the organization has a research coordinator who's helping me with this study. And she would screen participants to look for parents who are new in the system, who just got an IEP within the last 3 years. So they're not very experienced with navigating the special education system. And they would be invited to take part in the study and fill up some questionnaires. There's 3 main outcome measures. One is measuring family empowerment, so how confident they feel that they can advocate in an IEP meeting. The other one is family outcomes, or questions about specific details in the IEP. Or do I feel like I ask questions in an IEP meeting? Things like that. And the third one, it's just a knowledge scale about the IEP. Do you know what's the least restricted environment? So they complete these questionnaires, which are the main outcome measures. And then they're randomized to take part and sit down in a computer and watch 3 videos and then follow up with a research assistant. These videos are informational in nature with just the basic, most important things that parents need to know in the IEP. The parents that are randomized to a control group get the materials in a manualized form. So we're trying to experiment to see if this video-based intervention works as well as a previous intervention that was with another parent. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's how it looks for somebody who's taking part in the study, and hopefully we can develop in the future something that is very cost effective for the organization. Because having a parent-to-parent program, it's more expensive for the organization. It takes more time, it takes more logistics to just arrange the meetings between a parent who's a mentor and a parent who's a mentee. So in the future, we want to develop what's called a smart intervention or adaptive intervention, in a way that parents who do not respond to the most cost-effective version of the intervention, which is a computer-based or web-based in the future, would be assigned to parents that are other parents who are mentors who are going to help them out. So in that way, you go up in the level of intensity in the intervention as parents respond or do not respond to these measures, to these outcome measures. But that's kind of the line of research in the future.
Wow.
That's really interesting. I like the targeting based on the need. So if a parent needs more engagement, they can get it then.
Right.
Yeah, and almost like willingness to, like, what level of support do you even need? You know,
Right.
and like a tiered approach, right?
Yeah, and that comes from special ed. We use the RTI model, the response to intervention model, to even identify a specific learning disabilities. You know, we use this different levels of intervention or different levels of intensity that is also less invasive for the student, but it's also more cost effective for the school or for the teachers. You know?
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So, if you can, what are some of the findings in your work so far?
So the first version of this intervention, the parent-to-parent intervention, we found out something interesting, that parents were given the empowerment scale and the family outcome scale, which are just perceptions of their own abilities to advocate, right? And they score high in these measures of their own perceptions about advocacy. When they were given the test about knowledge in the IEP, they scored really low. So when we had these two groups in the first version of the study, control and the ones that got the parent-to-parent intervention, the ones in the parent-to-parent intervention increased the scores in the knowledge scale significantly. So they did learn the basic facts about the IEP. However, they did not move in any direction in terms of empowerment or advocacy. So that tells us a couple of things. Maybe parents do feel like they have the skills, but when you actually test them, they're not scoring at the same level. Or it could be that the measures that we're using are not that appropriate. So what I'm doing in this second iteration of the intervention is to give them the test first and then the empowerment scale to see if that actually changes their perceptions about how much they know in the IEP in terms of advocacy.
Okay. And I mean, what methods do you think that parents typically prefer? Do they prefer the videos, the phone, the manuals?
That's a great question. It's part of what we're trying to find out.
Yeah.
As you know, as we move to a virtual, remote kind of work environment, I think people are adapting very quickly to the delivery of virtual content, right? It's just we have to. I mean, we don't have that choice, right, anymore. Yeah. So I think this might change in terms of how parents are accessing content. Especially the population that I work with, that is sometimes it's a vulnerable population. They might prefer to be remotely engaged to an intervention, or they need this trust with another parent who can really help them navigate. So the good thing about working with a community-based organization is that they have this trust established with the community, and they can really access a lot of parents that otherwise would not go to an institution or the public school. You know, oftentimes I did another study with undocumented parents with children with autism, and what they told us is that they were very afraid of approaching any institution, any public school, the regional center, or anything like that, because they were afraid that they could be deported.
Mm-hmm.
So I think working with a community organization helps us build that bridge with a community that otherwise wouldn't exist with researchers or public schools in general.
Cool. So it's so important. I mean, we've heard from families even that access our, workshops and things we offer through the center that that they don't know how to navigate the system. And I can imagine that if you're dealing with all these other questions, like, are people going to find out I'm not documented? Or like, I don't even know what it means to have good services, that you would need even more support. So I'm really glad to hear of the project that you're doing and what it's doing to support families, which then supports educators also to provide better services for and just more informed services to families. If people are interested in learning any more about this topic of like advocacy or service provision or anything like that, what are some resources that you trust and that you would recommend them looking towards?
Right. So in terms of Spanish-speaking families, the organization Fiesta Educativa, that is fiestaeducativa.org, is the organization I work with. Mm-hmm. And they have workshops all over California. They used to have it at people's homes in the community. Now they're doing a virtual version of that. And they also work with regional centers as training for parents, service providers. So they work with regional centers to have parents that speak Spanish take a course on what is autism and what does it mean for your family. Another important website that you probably heard about is Autism Speaks. They do a lot of research. They have a toolkit for families in different languages, and they do a lot of research in autism. And another website that I trust that it's tailored for parents, it's understood.org. And this is more generally speaking about the IEP, parents' rights and identification and types of services that parents can access through the IEP. So those three, I would say, are the main ones.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with our community, Dr. Luelmo. We really appreciate you taking the time, and then we really appreciate the impact you're making in autism research and in the Southern California autism community.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
So for all you who are watching, if you want to learn more about our center and our center members, you can find out more at autism.sdsu.edu.
Or you can look for us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, where our handle is at SDSU Autism. And we'll see you next week for our next Research Spotlight. Until then, we hope that you can stay safe, stay healthy, and stay connected.